Hey guys, what's up? This is Cyclonic here, bringing you guys a video on the basics of Premiere Pro. I've noticed a lot of people on my timeline have now been starting to get into YouTube more, or just need a video editing software for any sort of content creation. So figured I'd bring a video to try and help y'all get off the ground a bit. Before we get into the actual workings of Premiere Pro, one question I get a lot is what software should I be using to edit my videos? There's a bunch of them: Sony Vegas, Premiere Pro, After Effects, iMovie, Wondershare, Filmora, and all of those can be good options. But I think the three main ones that people throw around the most are Sony Vegas, Premiere Pro, and After Effects. Now, Sony Vegas is ever common, the most common probably, but I tend to find it a little non-user friendly, and I've used it before multiple times to try and make videos, just didn't like the feel of it much, so I ended up switching to Premiere Pro. And Premiere Pro felt very similar to Photoshop in terms of the structure, so it was an easy transition for me. But the main difference, the discriminator between After Effects and Premiere Pro is that I believe in terms of workflow, After Effects is meant to handle smaller compositions, maybe even just a clip-by-clip basis to actually go and edit the hell out of a certain clip, do whatever post-processing you need to, and then put them all together in one timeline in Premiere Pro. So Premiere Pro is meant for the longer compositions, more than 1 or 2 minutes, and then keep After Effects for the shorter compositions. So now that we've addressed all that, I want to go ahead and let's actually start making a new project in Premiere Pro. So we have this new project window set up here. The only two options that you'll really need to worry about as a beginner are the name, of course, and then the location of where you want to be saving this project file. So I would definitely put this file in the folder that contains all your clips, because you're going to see very soon that'll make your life a lot easier. So let's go ahead, untitled is fine for right now. I'm going to hit OK. So let it slowly start to get in there. Okay, now we have this window. First thing you're going to want to do, before I explain all this, it'll be easier if we just import a clip. So we're going to go to File, and then we're going to go to Import. Now, if you scroll over on your left side here, you'll notice that, at least for me, there's this thing for the CC 2019. It basically shows where my project file is. This is the folder in which I saved my, you see the untitled.pr proj here. So this is where it is. So let me go ahead and go to 2K clips. Let me import one of Germ's clips right here. Alright, so now we have one of Germ's clips in here. Let's go ahead and drag it onto the timeline. So once this slowly, okay, good, there we go, solid. So now we have the clip on the timeline. Now I'm about to try to explain what some of these panels are. So first thing to note is that you'll see a bunch of text up here. Each of these puts these windows and panels into a different layout. So I personally like the editing one the most, but what you can do is that if you find one you like but isn't quite to your expectations, let's say I want to go and delete this panel, I really don't need it, it's cluttering things up for me, you can close the panel, and then you can go to Window, Workspaces, and then you can save changes to this workspace, or just save as a new workspace and it would appear up here, and you can see there's a drop down for a bunch of other different workspaces. So that's a useful tool to know. So right now we're going to stay in editing, and you just have to click on any of these to switch to the other layouts. So now once we imported that clip, it went straight to this window right here. So this is the actual clip, and you'll get to recognize these icons soon. It tells you the frame rate, which is important. And then none of this stuff I really use all that often. This is somewhat important though, the actual resolution of the video. So you'll notice that we're in 1280 by 720. Most people want to upload as 1920 by 1080, which is full HD. So what you have to do for that is to go to Sequence, and then let me make sure you're actually clicking. This is the sequence right here. So you'll notice this green icon. This actually represents the sequence right here. So we're going to go to Sequence, Sequence Settings. And then over here, you can switch this to Custom. And then that way you can actually change the frame size. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1920 by 1080, and you'll notice this video previews thing will change. Don't need to worry about this formatting right here, any of this other stuff. Just change this. This will mirror it automatically, and go to OK. So now just go past this warning message, not a big deal. So now here we are. You'll notice because this is a 1280 footage, it's not fully filling up the 1920. So what we need to do for that, or what I personally like to do, is right click this and then scale to frame size. Now what that does is still keeps the scale looking like it's at 100, which is full normal size, but then it actually fills up the window. Another option would be, if we didn't want to do that, just put 150 in here, because that's just the ratio conversion, or you can go to set to frame size, and that will set it to that value over there if you want to know what scale it's actually at compared to normal. But I like to keep it on scale to frame size, so let's go ahead and do that. So this window is where you will see all the stuff that you've imported, your sequence, and then you can drag stuff from here onto the timeline. Then the other major portion here is the effects. So you can pull in any of these effects. For example, I can go ahead, if I'm clicking on this and I have this selected, it'll pop up here. So I can go and either drag it over here or drag it over here. And then for transitions, you would just, if you have two clips here, the place where it's broken up on the timeline from one clip to the next is where you would drag over the transition from, and that I would specifically drag over to the timeline, but I'll show you that in a bit. So now that we're done here, this, obviously the timeline, this is what you call, this blue line is called the scribbler, or scrubbler, I forget the exact term, scrubber maybe, something like that. But the point is, you'll see this time code changing here. And so like at 4 seconds, for example, this is the seconds, and then this is another unit of time. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but it goes up to, I believe it goes up to 30. So just a little note there. So now you have this is changing, this preview is changing along with it. You have these icons here to just play the preview. You can also do that with a space bar and start and stop this. Quality here, depending on how good your computer's RAM is, you can go to full if you want to, but I just like to use 1/4 because it's not 1/4 quality, because that way my computer's not as slow with that. If you're on 1/4 when you're scrobbling through this, it's not going to look that great. But if you want to see how it would look in high quality, like just a frame, just pause on the frame and you'll notice that quality just instantly became better. And that'll be how that particular frame looks when you render it out. So now that we're through that, another couple things on the timeline I should note before we get into the effect controls. So here's all your tracks. 3 audio tracks, 3 video tracks. The video layers work as, Photoshop layers. The higher you are up here, that'll be the most visible, theoretically. Audio, I don't know exactly how that works, but I've never had to really layer audio as such like that. I would just lower the volume of one if I needed to. But if you want to be safe, put like the main music for whatever you're doing over here, and then any clip audio can come on this first track. Important thing to note is that, let's say I want to add another track right above V1, I can go here, right click on V1 and add track, and it'll add another track right above it. But if I want to add one for whatever reason below it, what you have to do is go to right click here, add tracks, and then you'll see a before the first track, and then you can go ahead and add that right there. So we've done that, and I should also mention that you can set this to 0, that it's not adding an audio track like you just did. And then here, the I button basically toggles whether the track is actually displaying or not. Same thing here, muting versus not. Nothing else major to report there. Here are the major tools you'll want to know. I've gotten very used to not knowing the icons and just using my keyboard. So in Adobe, to return back to the pointer tool, always V on your keyboard, V as in Valerie. And then C for the cutting tool. So if you want to go anywhere, let's say you want to cut on a specific frame, go ahead and cut right here. Or if you want to, Control K. So the frame that we're on currently will belong to the next video, and then the previous frame will belong to the previous video, just for you to note how it's cut off. Then another tool is the text tool, which you just do T, and then you can go ahead and click on the screen, and then a whole text bubble will pop up there, and you can scroll down here, change whatever stuff you need there. Those are basics that I'll leave you guys to play around with, and it'll create the text layer up here, do whatever you need to. No matter what tool for the pointer tool at least, when you're on this, let's say you want to make this shorter, you see how the cursor changes, you just drag that and it should snap to the timeline, to the scribbler, wherever you want to. The next tool, and the last tool that I'll probably need to cover in this one, is the rate tool, so R. So now what that does is, it actually changes the rate at which the clip itself is being played. So let's do it with this one. Right now, this clip is playing at 100% speed, normal stuff. Let's say I want this clip from this exact beginning to this exact endpoint in the content, but I wanted to play at 50% speed or something slower. I'll just drag this out like this so the clip itself takes longer. So it's still the same beginning and endpoint as it was before, but now it's going to be slower. And you'll notice that if the clip is long enough, you'll see the percentage here. So it's playing at 62% speed. Now, if you want to actually make that 50 specifically, you can go ahead and right-click the clip and then go to speed/duration. Change the speed number here, or just set what duration you want that portion of the clip to be. You can reverse speed if you want the clip to go backwards. That's the main stuff you're going to need there. I would also use optical flow here. Shout out to Air Jordo for that tip. But if you're doing slow-mo, go optical flow. It makes your life a lot easier. I've low-key been able to slow 30 FPS footage down past 50%, almost like 30% speed. And I think the snubby clip in the Make It Happen video was lower than 50% speed. That portion where he goes into his first jump shot. So keep that in mind. And so those are the major tools you'll need to know here. Now we're going to go into the effects tool. So here the motion, that's their basic motion stuff. I can move my position by clicking and dragging over here. So you'll notice that the clip is moving there. Another way to do it is just click on it and then type in the numbers yourself. Or for certain parameters, you'll have this drop down, and you can just do the sliding, and it'll give you limits as you need them. So that's that, and then let's say I zoom in this clip. I'll zoom this to 210, do some weird funky positioning with it. Cool, we have that. Now let's say I don't want to go and do all those motions again for this clip. What you can do is come back over to this clip. Make sure if you're ever selecting a clip, whether to delete it or whatever you want to do, if you just want to select the clip, always be on the pointer, the selection tool V. So now what you can do is go to motion, click on the motion, you'll see it's highlighted, Control C to copy, and then go here, Control V, you'll notice the numbers changed and now it's playing at the same motion base thing. I'll leave you guys to play around with some of these other topics here. Opacity, just how transparent it is. And then level is how audible the volume is. So you can, if you wanted to completely fade out, maybe go to like -40 dB. So the last thing that in this segment that I want to discuss is these blue toggle animations. So they're more commonly known in the editing world as keyframes. So what that means is, let's say I don't want this clip to stay at this position forever. Let's say I wanted to gradually zoom in. What I can do is I'll start this at 210 scaling wise. I'll click this. You'll notice there's this little thing right here. It's called a keyframe, and it'll show up here as well. And you'll notice the blue, which means your cursor is on it right now. If you move away like this, you'll notice this now turns white, and there's this back arrow here. So if I go to previous keyframe, it just clicks the scrobble back there. So now I want to add, by the end of this video, I want to actually zoom out. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 100 to this. And then if this is toggled like this and you change any value, it's automatically going to create that keyframe for you. And then it'll just be a linear zoom out over time. So that is useful in a variety of aspects. Even to fade out, you can start it at 0 dB here and then go down to like -40 over here. And that would fade out the audio there. So those are some basics there. And then one thing I forgot to mention with the text, if it wasn't clear already, is that it's transparent. So it'll show as a black background because that's Premiere Pro's like solid background, but it'll show up as it's black there. But if you put it over here, transparent. So those are some basics with operating Premiere Pro. And before I forget, last thing that you'll want to know how to do for right now is to go to File and Export. So we can go to Export Media. Make sure you're clicking on the correct sequence. Make sure it's selected. And then go ahead to Export Media. Alright, so now we're in the Export window. Most people are going to want to set this format to H.264, which is basically fancy for MP4. You'll see the file extension here. And then preset, match source, high bitrate. Always do that. And then what you want to do is you can go here to output name and then whatever file you want to make it, wherever you want to put it, and then hit save, and it'll apply it there. Export video, export audio, all this stuff should be filled out by default. And then the this part right here, it shows you you know, what you're actually going to be rendering. This is the in point, this is the out point. So right now we told it we wanted to render the entire thing, but let's just say I wanted to just get to this portion right here. I can either click and drag that over here, but that kind of takes some time. I'd much rather just hit set out point and automatically snap it there. And then if I want to move the in point, I can just scroll this to wherever I wanted to and do that. And then the options here are the queue. If you have Adobe Media Encoder, you can do that, but most of you, I'm assuming, just have Premiere Pro. So once you hit export, you can, if there's anything that you need to confirm this, overwrite something or whatever, just go ahead with it, but export should be what you need. It tells you the estimated file size. And one last thing is that here, I've set the in and out points here, but you can also set them on the timeline. So this button right here, mark in, and then this one to mark out. So let's say I want to mark in here, and then let's say I want to mark out there. This gray portion shows you exactly where it is, and you can even drag it, do whatever like we did in that export window. And then another thing to note is that for some of you who want to get footage straight from the video for thumbnails, for example, handy feature right here is the export frame. So you can go browse, set whatever path, have it be in PNG, set your name, and then hit OK, and it'll save out the PNG there in high quality. So let's say that you want to, you think that some clip's audio is playing a little too low, and it's not up there compared to what you want to. Sometimes a lot of these clips will be the audio will display relative to each other. So if you right click on the audio portion and go to audio gain, you notice the peak amplitude, it says is negative 12.3 dB, and for it to be truly audible, you want it around 0 or a little above 0, so it plays over the audio below it. So what you can do is set gain to about 15, let's say, for this one, and then that way you'll notice that if you didn't before, it goes this waveform goes from lower to higher, and then it'll be more audible over the sound of the music that's playing there. Couple side notes that I forgot to mention in the other segments is that if you want to, let's say, put this clip over this clip, what you can do is click and then drag, and let's say you don't want the audio to, if you do it like this, it'll basically replace whatever's under it. But if you first drag this one, then drag this one down here, and then move them over, you can overlay clips and stuff on each other. You can do a lot of stuff while you just drag and click, and stuff should snap automatically. So quick note there on that. So hopefully that video helped everyone. If you have any specific questions, let me know. I'm also happy to offer some paid 1v1 lessons if people want them on Discord. So just hit me up, like, and subscribe if this helped you out, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.